Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read this month. I will be talking about them in short little reviews, but if you want to get more in-depth thoughts on any of these books, I discuss everything that I'm reading week to week over on my second channel in my reading vlogs, and then I also have in-depth discussions for some of my favorite books of the month over there as well. So that is linked in the description if you want it, but for now, we will do the quick reviews. First book I finished this month was Ship of Destiny. This is the third book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is a fantasy series that it's set in a world where ships can have sentience. There are ships that are alive. They can think and move for themselves, and they have loyalty to a family. And we follow one family that is attached to the Vivacia, the main ship that we encounter throughout the series, though there are more. This family is a trader's family. They use their live ship to trade, and the inciting incident, the thing that launches the series, is that the figurehead of the family, the leader of the family, dies, and the Vivacia is, the way it's inherited doesn't go the way the whole family really expected, and it kind of tears the entire family apart and displaces the ship, and it's kind of a mess. And from there we follow the different members of the family as they control the ship, attempt to get the ship back, all the things. This was an awesome conclusion. I'm thrilled with the way it all came together. The way, the mysteries of this world were so fun to explore and discover. The characters in this trilogy are so human and feel so real, and what they go through, I go through with them. Seeing the full arc for some of these characters, seeing everything come together and the setup for what's to come was so much fun. This is a very, very slow-paced series. It's very character-focused, but I love that. I love a character-focused nautical fantasy. You can't really go wrong with that for me. There's also a dedicated discussion for this book on the second channel with Library Science Alliance, so that is on the second channel if you want to dig more spoilers for the entire trilogy. Next book I finished was The Thing About Bollywood. I buddy read this with a friend because we just thought it was going to be fun, and it was. This follows a girl who her parents are going through a separation, and she basically just feels out of control. Well, her parents are going through a separation, and her best friend is becoming very attached to a new friend. So in both of her main places of stability and consistency, it's all feeling out of control to her. And the way that's affecting her life is that everything is turning into a Bollywood movie. So the fun pieces of this book are the Bollywood part, where she would push down her feelings. Her dad has this very conceal, don't feel kind of mentality, so she would push down her feelings and kind of lock it all away, and every time she refused to express herself, splashes of color would go up on the wall, or a wig would appear on her dad, or something like that, like something big that would change to turn it into a Bollywood film. And then also everybody sings and dances, including her, even though she hates singing and dancing in public. So those elements were really fun. It was very on the nose about like the themes that it wanted to discuss, and that part was a little bit less fun because it was pretty intense, and even the Bollywood elements ended up being kind of intense because she doesn't enjoy singing and dancing, and she didn't get a choice in participating in the song and dance, so even that kind of felt like her agency was just kind of being stolen from her around every corner, which made what could have been a fun like escape for her ended up being more shackles. So I have kind of mixed feelings about this book. I think that it would be a good book for parents to start discussions with their kids about feeling out of control when their lives are changing in drastic manners, but I don't really have strong feelings about it overall. Oh, good. Next up is Small Game. This is a survival story. A girl, a woman. Can you tell that I forget names as soon as I finish books? A woman who is she works at a survival camp. People pay to go get stranded somewhere on her acreage, and then she keeps an eye on them to make sure they don't die. And the goal is for them to survive for the night, and that's her business. And then there's this survival reality show that she gets to participate in, and they drop you off on an island and you try to survive. And she's doing it for the money and for the freedom, because if she can get this award money, this prize money, then she can get out of a relationship she doesn't want to be in. Well, so she's in the survival thing with these people with her, and then there's the camera crew, and the camera crew acts exactly as reality shows do, where they're not really trying to help you, they're trying to manipulate you so that you're in a precarious position so that they can have good TV. So it's not really a survival show. It's reality shows, which are something. So here's how I would like to describe this book to you. It's a really cool idea. I love survival stories, and it's a great setup for what could potentially be an interesting survival story. And then it like trips over its own feet and just falls down the cliff. That's how I felt about this book. It's like it was like, I'm gonna try to do something interesting. I'm not just gonna be a survival story. I'm gonna do something really clever. And then it just, the explanation for why things happened the way they did was just, it was terrible. It was so bad. And then it all happened. And then it's just like, and then we got to the ending, and it was like the author got tired of writing, and she was like, here's a summary paragraph for the end, because I don't feel like writing the end. Oh, it's gonna be on my worst books of the year, where I will talk about it in spoilers, because I desperately need to talk about how this book ended. The first half I was really into, and then there was the second half, so. Next up, we have The Lost Metal, which is the recent Brandon Sanderson release. This is the conclusion to the Wax and Wayne Quartet Mistborn Era 2. I really enjoyed this. I have talked to a ton of people on BookTube about this book, because loads of us have been reading it. Seems to be getting kind of mixed reviews. Some people are super thrilled with how it ended. Some people feel a little bit less super thrilled. I thought it was tons of fun. The thing with me is Mistborn Era 2, I think, doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a fun time. That's what the series is. It's a fun time. It's a continuation of the magic of Mistborn, but it's its own thing, and it's much more lighthearted and chill, and that is the way I have read these books. And so with book 4, I just had a fun time. I just had so much fun reading it. I thought that the action was super fun. I thought that the character growth, Sanderson really ran with these characters in this book, and I loved to see it. And it also set up a lot of stuff for Era 3. I do wish that the ending of this quartet could have been more self-contained, like the ending of the original Mistborn trilogy was, where obviously you can continue it, he did, but you could also just stop, and it is its own self-contained trilogy. This conclusion did not feel that way. It's not self-contained. There were too many threads left completely wide open for Sanderson to pick up again later on, which is my one kind of, I wish you had made it feel more self-contained and not really, because this didn't really feel like an ending so much, but I still had a blast reading it. I had a great time. I'm not mad. Then I read the novella, The Emperor's Soul, because there were some references to that in The Lost Metal, some Cosmere things, and I wanted to read it, so I did. And it's a novella. So she makes forged paintings, and anyway, she's caught. She's captured, and now she's been tasked with the goal of making a forgery of the Emperor's soul. And so our protagonist, who can do this, her magic is wrapped up in that. She has to study the Emperor. She has to learn the ins and outs about him, really know what makes him tick, and the innermost workings of who he is as a person, so that she can make a forgery of his soul, stamp it on someone, and pretend that the Emperor is still kicking. So yeah, it was a really fun novella. I really liked the protagonist. I really loved watching her work and watching her sort through this problem, as well as trying to escape her capture, and as well as like her internal, what was going on inside of her. It was a lot of fun. Oh, and there was also a discussion for this one as well with Michael Knipp and Bookborn on the second channel, where we talked about the book at length with spoilers. Next up, I read Half a Soul, which is kind of Regency era, Jane Austen-esque story. The reason I feel like it's Jane Austen-esque is because it's in that kind of setting, but also Jane Austen does a lot of social commentary with the way she has characters interact with the balls and the societal expectations and stuff, and this did a lot of that too. But like and Jane Austen has so much humor in her books too, and this does too. It just feels very like modern Austen. So, and fantasy. There's also magic. So our main character has half of her soul stolen by a fae creature, a fairy, and so now she walks around with only half of a soul. This affects her in the way she feels emotions and in her ability to pick up on social cues, and she just she doesn't really fit into society so much anymore, so she's all the time saying something a bit too bluntly, and then the way people react to her, she's like, no, I messed up again, didn't I? Like, she just does not get social cues at all. And so it's her quest to get the other half of her soul back so she can be a whole person again, as well as it's a very much romance focused fantasy book. And it was sweet. The way I would describe this book is just a wholesome, sweet, fun book. It was very, very charming. It's a very quick read, and I had a lot of fun reading it and laughing at many of the lines. Now we're on to the manga that I read this month. I almost finished Fullmetal Alchemist. I'm so close. I should finish it at the very beginning of December, but I didn't finish it this month. It's been a very busy month, and but I have loved this series. I was expecting to enjoy it. I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I am. The first time I tried to read Fullmetal Alchemist, I enjoyed it, but fell off with it. And oh man, is it providing so much more depth, so much more character work and inter-character relationships that I'm just falling for so much more than I expected. And I've had so much fun reading through it. I've read the majority of it. I just have a few volumes left here at the beginning of December, and then I'll wrap it up. But it's been a ride. A crazy ride to read this series. And then the manga series that I started this month is called The Climber. I've only read the first 2 volumes of it. After I wrap up Fullmetal Alchemist, I'll be reading more of it. So far, I love it, but not because it's good necessarily. I wouldn't say that the first 2 volumes, the plot is decent. Even. I mean, it's this kid that's challenged to climb a wall, and then that kind of sparks an interest in climbing for him, but like he can't climb this mountain, and so then he enters a climbing competition. It's not a solid plot, but it is solid in how it represents climbing. So I grew up climbing. I love rock climbing so much, and the way that this artist and author depicts the feeling of being on a climb, the thrill, the excitement, the physical and mental satisfaction of figuring it out, as well as just like gear stuff. Like the first time the protagonist puts on a pair of climbing shoes, it's built up like it's gonna be a moment. Like these shoes are gonna make it so much easier for him to climb. He's going to finally be able to fit into the wall much, much better, and it's gonna change his life. And then you have this big old build up for like this Cinderella moment as he's getting ready to put on the shoe, and then he puts it on, and then he turned the page and he just like yells and he's like, "This is horrible!" Like, climbing shoes are terribly uncomfortable. I don't know. It's just a lot of the feeling of being on a climb, as well as kind of like some gear. It almost feels like inside joke stuff. I don't know. I really like it. Like I feel like if you're a climber, then like read this because it's so great. But if you're not, then so far plot isn't anything to write home about. However, I have heard that the manga actually changes authors and then the quality changes quite a bit. So I think the plot it'll probably get there. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm still gonna read it because I'm really, really enjoying it. So those are all the books and manga that I read this month, the month of November. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite thing that you read this month was. I think my favorite is going to be Ship of Destiny. And my least favorite, I'll say and Fullmetal Alchemist. I'll say Ship of Destiny and Fullmetal Alchemist are my favorites of November. And then my least favorite, oh, I don't own it physically. My least favorite is that small game. Phew. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite books of the month are. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned today? Are you gonna read any of them? I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on this channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays on the second channel, where I post all kinds of bookish discussions, so check that out. It's always linked in the description. Also check out my Patreon if you feel like it. We do loads of buddy reads over there, hang out, talk all the time. I'll see you again soon. Bye.